What's going on, everybody? Corey here, and today I just kind of want to share my thoughts. I guess it's kind of a review of decks. Um, I don't want to, I hate calling it a review, though I am going to be, I guess, reviewing it. But it's really just kind of my overall thoughts of decks by Lloyd Barnes and Javier. I'm going to mess up your name. Fionn Mayer? I'm sorry, Javier. I'm sorry. I just can't say your name. But it's there's been a lot of different things said about decks, and I'm going to try to do my best to keep the facts straight of everything. Though I do have a bad history with reviews, so we'll see how this goes. Um, to start off with, Dex is $75, and it is, you know, it's an index. It's a card index. Well, I guess it could be used for anything card size, really. Um, but one of the, to touch on one of the first, negative things I've been seeing out there is that it's not a. People have been under the impression that it's a full 52 card index. It's really a 48 card index. But in the instructions, in the 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours of instructions, which I've went through all of it, uh, it's really 48 cards and then without the aces, and then they show you how to put the aces in if you want it. And that's been a big. I've got it right here in front of me. I'm going to try not to lift it up into the view of the camera. But that's been one of the big things that I've seen people complain about. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't hold 52 cards. In the tutorial, Lloyd and Javier talk about um, kind of the reasoning for leaving out the aces and then how to put them into the index if you really wanted them in there. And I get it. I see their perspective. I see the other people's perspective of wanting it to be more of a true 52 card index. But I do see if you're asking someone, hey, I want you to think of a card, and the logic is like, don't think of the aces because those are very commonly named cards. It's true. I have an ace routine that plays on the fact that aces are very commonly named and the popularity of each ace. So I get that. So that doesn't bother me because that would already be something that I would have done in saying, hey, don't think of one of the aces. Um, so that's number one. I've seen some people complain a little bit about the thickness. And honestly, it's practically a whole deck of cards you're putting in your pocket. So it's really not much thicker than a deck of cards. Now, going into kind of my opinions of it, how the how Dex is made. So in the tutorial, they kind of go like the first video is almost all, not quite all, but almost all history. A good chunk of it is history of decks, and then they show you some kind of like basic techniques for using decks. So kind of getting the card out, how to set it up, um, different ways of palming and copying the cards coming out of it, and then little tips and tricks to help with it. So they do try to address, they try to address some things with it, but um, how it's made does concern me. So I'm going first. Let me right from the beginning. I have not performed with decks. I have practiced with it quite a bit, um, and I'm not very good with it, but I'm getting a little bit better. Um, but going from the original concept of the idea and when they changed it to what you get is, in my opinion, not going to last forever. This is not a prop that you're going to, if you're using it, I should say. I think if it's something where you're not using it a ton, um, then it might last you forever. I don't believe, again, haven't had this for more than a week or so. I don't believe that it's going to last forever. Your mileage out of decks for how long it survives is going to be very dependent on how you treat it, um, how you carry it with you, um, how much you use it. But at the end of the day, it is plastic slash vinyl. Uh, so you're not going to get a lifetime out of it. Like, I've seen a lot of people, theirs is already falling apart. Mine has started falling apart where they address it in the tutorial how to resolve that. If you're concerned, and mine was bad. So I did take to using rubber bands to kind of secure it a little bit. Um, I would have used a little bit different adhesive, but at the end of the day, without giving too much away, it's a stack of essentially packet trick wallets is what it's made out of. That's not exactly what it's made out of, so don't take it's like, oh, I can go make this out of packet trick wallets. But it has very much that feel, and I think we all have packet trick wallets um, that we've carried around before, and they don't hold up super well. Now, this could be made a little bit better than that, but from the initial feel, that's how it feels. But again, your mileage is really going to depend on how you treat decks. Um, as for the setup and loading and unloading, I've seen a couple of people say it's like, oh well, Javier and Lloyd can't even get the right card, so it's not reliable. I think in the process of filming things, you're sitting there talking, you're trying to explain, um, you get things wrong. You're in this weird pressure of recording, so you sometimes you just mess up, and sometimes that happens. And it's going to happen. Everyone messes up, and part of me wishes they would have not left that in the recordings in the tutorial videos, but the other part of me is happy that they did, because I think it's important to see that you can make mistakes, and if you have used this a lot, you can still make mistakes. It happens. Also, in the context of them pulling the wrong card, if I remember correctly, it was them like racing to see who can pull the card out faster. Um, so again, that doesn't bother me. The whole point of an index, and even with this, isn't the speed of what you're pulling out. It's it's heavily advertised as as being fast, or at least that was the previous advertisement that I saw when it was first kind of brought out and teased by Lloyd like a year ago. But that's not like you're not reaching into your pocket asking someone to name out a card and then pulling out your head like, oh look, I got your card in my pocket. Um, and if you're performing any index like that, you're kind of a douche. Sorry, but that's not the way it's a utility device. It's not something that you're supposed to like. It's not something that you're supposed to be using as like a standalone trick. It's like deck switching boxes is to aid you. It's a utility to aid you into getting to uh, indifferent effects. So those arguments kind of bother me. Um, the setup of decks, um, I'll just throw this out there. I don't think this is really exposing anything. They do talk about chase order for setting up the cards because you are doing groups. Um, I'm going to modify mine a little bit because of how my brain works with how it's set up. It's it just doesn't work the way they have it. So basically, like on one side you've got it set up, you've got everything in chase, but on one side you've got them face out, on the other side you have them back out. So I'll probably change mine around a little bit just to make it where my brain's not having to fight for no. On this side, diamonds are in front. On this side, clubs are in front. Technically, um, any other struggles that I really have with this are personal. My hands are very dry, so pulling out a card with my index finger, like how they show in there, where they just put their index finger in there and pull a card out, that doesn't work for me. So I do have to bring my thumb over to their side to pull the card out. The riffling, that's another thing I have problems with. So my fingertips, I have no feelings in my fingertips. I feel nothing in my fingertips. Uh, so riffling to get to the card doesn't work super well for me. Um, so like I said, I would have liked to have seen. I like the way it's set up because there are some bits to it that make it easier. Um, but I would have liked to see that almost mirrored, but I get why they did it the way they did it. The tutorial, let's talk about that. Like, there are many hours. I think there was a total of 5 videos. Um, and honestly, for Murphy's, this has been the best, one, yeah, really the best experience for their videos, for their tutorials. Um, so it is on, they might change this, but currently the tutorials that are on the Murphy's page are go to a YouTube page. Um, Private videos or unlisted videos or whatever. Um, but it allows them to be little bookmarks in there, so you can do the whole like scrolling up. Like, okay, I want to go to this section. My negative about the tutorials is there are spots in, I want to say it's the second video. It might be the first one. Because if I remember correctly, they do teach a couple things in the first one. Um, but they have a couple moments where, oh, we just turned the camera back on. We just had this idea that occurred to us. I would have much rather that kind of breaks you out of the rhythm of learning, because now you're getting kind of more. You're not getting anything tested. You're getting ideas of what could work, and they're kind of just playing with them on the fly, which is fine. I would have much rather have seen that, like in a final video, saying, "Hey, here's some bonus ideas that we had while we were filming." But to keep everything just running smoothly. That's my biggest thing. The lessons don't really run super smooth. Some do, but when they have this, like, when you get this, oh, we turn off the camera, then I just had this idea, so here we are, here we're going to talk about it, we're going to try it out. That's my complaint about the tutorial. The tutorial is long, but this is really, honestly, a master class of index work. Um, And out of anything that I've purchased that has a long tutorial, this is the only project that really deserves it. Of anything that I bought Murphy's related that has like, or even Penguin related that has like a long tutorial. Um, I do love that you get so much, you get a bunch of ideas and a bunch of routines that you can take and say, and really apply that to any index that you work with some modifications. For things that maybe you haven't thought about, um, or if you've never even used an index. Like me, I've only ever used really small indexes, and I'm not a big index person. It's just never been something that strikes my fancy. But I wanted to get this and see it and play around with it. Outside of that, there's some bonus stuff, but there's not a lot. There wasn't as much as I was expecting. So for like favorite routines or favorite things, there I have two that come out of the training, and they're not even from Lloyd and Javier. They are from Andrew Niner, who has a color match, which I think is brilliant, and Jake Keene, which is, um, you're doing a drawing duplication. And those are, to me, are the best of the routines. And that's just, again, personally, that's what I'm gravitating towards, because I think I have taken up, because of the numbness in my fingers, more of an interest in mentalism style work. So the tutorial, honestly, they could have just released itself, maybe package it a little bit nicer and better, um, but that's worth the price of admission, in my opinion. You could probably sell the tutorial itself for $60 and make money and say, hey, here's a masterclass on index work. It's geared towards decks, but it'll work towards anything, and then offer an upgrade to sell decks with it. But overall price, $75 for decks in the tutorial. Again, I think for me, uh, the tutorial is worth the 75. The decks, what it costs itself to make decks, it's not a lot. Now, I do understand there goes a lot of research and development, but I would have liked to have seen it a better quality material. Again, that's just me. I know there's going to be some people who see decks, and I have no problem with the quality, and it's fine. It works. But I would, and I understand some sacrifice, like doing this in leather would have added some bulk to it. at least in any experience that I have with leather, which isn't a ton, but I could see leather, you wouldn't get it as thin as what it is. They talk about how they were going to use, they had thought about using Tyvek, which would have probably been really well. It would have actually made it a lot thinner, or a decent amount thinner, but I could also see where that might not work as well. Um, I don't know if it's really an improvement of the first iteration of decks, not having played with that, but overall, it's a fine little utility. So where all this rambling for almost 20 minutes is going to is like if you've never used an index and you're wanting to get into it, I would probably say start with decks because you get a really good tutorial. You get a lot of good training, you get a lot of good tips. Again, there's some bits where it kind of gets broken up into like the flow gets interrupted by the we had a great idea while we were off camera or whatever during filming. Um, but I think for a first index and for the instructions on using an index, I think it's a good first step into an index. I think if you've used indexes before and you're already happy with your index, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's not something that you want to buy. Um, but maybe, but if you're interested, like this is so weird. Like I don't really know how to tell you what to buy. I hate telling people. I don't use reviews to figure out what I want to buy. It's like I'm very weird. I've never been a review person, but I would, if you're already happy with your index and you're doing a bunch of things and you're just buying it because you want to buy it, I'd say don't do it. Don't buy it. But if you're looking for something different, you're looking for, I find that intriguing, or I've heard some good things about the tutorial. Picking up the tutorial is worth the money alone. Also, for the back to the tutorial, I forgot about this. Like I think it's the last video. Um, most of it, most of the very last video is um, just a training video. So they've got some background up, some ambient music, and they're naming off cards for you to go through and practice. Like they name out the card and you practice pull it out. Obviously, if you have um, a Google, like a Android phone or an iPhone or any Amazon devices in your house, you can ask your assistant to name a card or pick a card, and you can practice that way. But I do like that you get a video that's just like it's Javier calling out cards, and you're going through and practicing getting those cards. Um, I think that's a great way to practice. I think it's a great little video, especially when you've just got done watching the tutorials. Like, okay, I'm ready to jump into this, and you've got this video where it goes through and just calls out a bunch of cards for you, and also has you ask questions for you to answer out loud while you're getting the card, so you're not hyper focused on getting the card out of the index. So that is a training tool, is great, and honestly, they could sell that as its own download as like a index training tool for like a $5-10 download, and I think people would buy it just for that alone. Um, but yeah, I don't. There's negatives to it. There's positives to it. Um, it's not a miracle device, and there's been a lot of talk about how it was overhyped, and I don't know if I think for me, if you go back to when it was originally teased by Lloyd back last summer, and you know the story, you know that it was actually like it was getting like it was close. They were getting ready to start, like production was starting. So it was going to be coming out like in a couple months. So it was like, hey, here's a little teaser. We talked about, I told you I'm working on some blah, 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 blah. He did the performance for his wife. And then it stopped. Lloyd didn't really talk about it much after that. It was the community that talked about it. It was everyone else that hyped it up. So I can't say that to me personally that I feel like it was overhyped. Um, I am in Lloyd's Discord, and I can say that I feel like a lot of people in the Discord was really hyping it up. There's a lot of anticipation around it, asking like constantly. And there's nothing against the guys in the Discord. I love all those guys and gals in the Discord. Um, I love participating in the conversations and hearing everyone's thoughts about things and seeing what people are doing. But I do think, and that was very focused. Like I didn't feel a lot of hype outside of that, personally. So I do think it's more. It was the more the community hyping it than Lloyd and Javier. Um, but yeah, like if I was gonna give this a rating out of like 5 stars, I'd probably like I'm not gonna give it a 5. It's like you've got to be like top tier to me to get like 5. But I would give it a solid 4, maybe a 4.5. Like it's a good. I love utility devices, and this is a good utility device. I wouldn't call it an EDC. I don't think this is something that you should be carrying with you every single day. If you want to, you can. It does take up a whole pocket. You're not going to put anything else in that pocket. You can, but then you're just going to have all sorts of mess going on in your pocket. Um, so I wouldn't call it an EDC device. But I do think that if you're a gigging magician, you're going out, you're performing, or you're like, oh, I'm going to go. I have plans. I'm going to go to this picnic, or I'm going to go to this company party, or whatever. And you're practicing it. You're good with it. Yeah, throw it in your pocket and take it to where you have a pretty good chance to perform. But if it's something, for me, it's not like a deck of cards or like some coins. Like, oh, I'm just going to throw those in because I can, go sit at a table and practice or do some magic here and there. Like if I'm on the spot or trying to calm people down, I can do some magic. This isn't what I wouldn't do decks for that. Again, personal opinion. But yeah, I'd give it a probably solid 4.5 stars. Again, the tutorial is great. I'm glad that they did it on YouTube and put the little chapters in there. Um, again, I wish it would have flowed a little bit better. I think taking out those we were off camera, we had this idea, so we were coming back to record it. Having that at the very end in a bonus video would have been much better, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what I gotta say about Dex. Again, $75. I think it's worth it for the tutorial alone. Um, and I think it's a I think it's a really good beginner index, and it takes up one pocket. Um, and like kind of like what Lloyd said on the Magic podcast, and it might be in the tutorial too. Like this is the perfect index for Lloyd and Javier. They like when they like this was what works for them, and this might not work for everything. And that's what you have to remember about Magic is so subjective, and it's very much like what works for you. That you can't take these reviews. You should use these reviews if you want to take them to heart as a guide of like, oh yeah, this person's touching on some of my thoughts or my questions about it, or this person's touching on this. You shouldn't take a review to heart to say yes or no to buy it. Because if I hate something and I say, hey, I hate this, that's just me putting out, coming out like, I don't like this. This doesn't fit me. This isn't something that I enjoy. This is not my kind of trick. But it may be something that you love. So you should always get a bunch of different opinions. Talk to people who own the device. Don't just listen to review channels. If find out another magician from Facebook or from a Discord or whatever is using something that you're interested in that you've heard a bad review on that you want, talk to them about that item. But that's my little rant on reviews. I hate doing reviews. Again, I have a history. I put out a review that was uh, not well researched, um, and very much emotional. And so I try to be better in them, but now I'm resulting in a 25-minute freaking video. So hopefully you get something out of this that you can take away. I'm sure I'm going to get people who comment hateful things on this video because they hate Dex and they hate Lloyd and they hate Javier, and just throw it in. They hate Craig Petty even though he's not even involved in this. Uh, but you I don't. People are going to be the way they want to be, and this is just my honest level thoughts on Dex. So take it how you will. Um, but if you have Dex and you like it, I'd love to hear you know kind of your favorite things about Dex. I'd love to hear your favorite routines. Like I said, mine is really that color match from Andrew Diner, and the stuff from um, the drawing duplication from Jake Keene. And to me, those are the best things on on the training that I get the most out of, that I think is the most fun. Also, they do have, if you have ED seat, there is, they don't really explain it very much because they can't, but they do have a handling using decks with ED seat, which is really cool. So that's it. I'm going to cut this video off. I'm over 25 minutes. I doubt I edit this down much further than this, if at all. So yeah, let's have a conversation down below. Tell me what you love about decks. Tell me what you hate about decks. Tell me your favorite routines with decks. What other indexes do you use? I'd love to hear it, and be kind in the comments. Don't be a jerk. I don't want to block anybody or delete any comments. Just be cordial. And we'll see you in the next video.